powerful steps for closer connection?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm going to be talking about these 4 steps. These 4 steps are going to help you open a difficult conversation. But also along with that is maintaining the connection. So there will be 2 things you will hear throughout this masterclass: this relational framework of 4 steps to help you open up that difficult conversation, and also the power of connection, staying connected to your partner, because staying connected to your partner opens them up to listening to you. Now, what I can't do is help you carry on the dialogue. This free offering is only to help you get it started. This free offering is part of my 1-year launch for my Closer Connection program, and I go into how to continue that dialogue. So just want to be clear about that, and now you can sit back and relax. Oops. Wrong screen. How did that happen? Okay. I love tech. Okay, what I want you to do right now is go inward and bring up your best imagination. Bring up that visual language that you have that helps you imagine. And I want you to imagine having an experience with a relationship that feels as easy as breathing. Imagine you and your partner sharing everything: thoughts, feelings, dreams, without any fear of judgment. And what if every conversation with your partner felt like a well-coordinated dance, where listening is just as important as talking? How would that change your connection if listening was just as important as talking? And can you picture how safe you would feel if you could be your true self at all times in your relationship? What impact would that have on your personal growth? Now, what would it mean for you to have the calming peace that comes from managing your emotions and insecurities within your relationship? How would that change the way you show up? Calming peace that comes from managing your emotions. Would it affect the way you show up? Now, let me share a personal story. Today, I'm the most grateful woman I know because I lived that relationship. It was very much like a dance. I did experience the calming peace of managing my emotions. I experienced the closeness, sharing our dreams, sharing our feelings, not having the resistance. I lived that. And I'm using this relational framework to teach that to you today, to how to get that process started. Because if it wasn't for this framework, I wouldn't be here today. I would be grieving in regret. But I had the privilege of experiencing a deep, nurturing, and nourishing emotional depth that most of us long for. I understood Jim's communication style. I knew what it felt like in my body to be understood by him. I always felt respected, seen, and heard. And I know what it feels like to have a close connection with my partner. I also know exactly what it takes to get there and to make that happen. Now, my last conversation with Jim, one of my last conversations, is permanently printed in my mind. It was July 10th, 2022, 2 days before Jim's outpatient surgery. Now, let me tell you about Jim. Jim is health conscious, exercise conscious. He was kind, even tempered, methodical. And I used to say, Jim moves at medium speed and he can get more done in one day than I can get done in a month. He was just that kind of guy. He cooked, he maintained our yard and our home. He took care of car repairs, home repairs, and yes, even my laundry the right way. So, yes, I had the dream life. I was Jim's royal kitten. I was 7 months post-retirement. We were in the beginning of my retirement years. Kids were launched. Parents had passed on. Careers ended successfully. And we had a dream life ahead of us. Now, Jim had a history of heart issues that were effectively managed for years. However, in the summer of 2022, his cardiologist recommended a high-risk procedure known as stenting. And it's a common outpatient procedure now. We were in one of the best, if not the best, hospital system in the Atlanta area. And the risk of death was so low. It was only 1 in 1,000. And Jim was an excellent candidate because he had no other health issues. But this procedure was going to be happening in about 2 days, and we were very hopeful and positive about it. However, that July 10th, Jim was sulking. Now, you had to know Jim. He kind of had this square-shouldered body, and when he sulked, his feet slid across the floor. And this particular day, he was sulking, he was irritable, he was frowning, he wasn't talking, he was emotionally isolating, was not at all engaging with me. And he tossed one of those big butcher knives, those big cutting knives, and the cutting board aggressively into our stainless steel sink. Now, when that happened, that was my cue to be prepared to have a difficult conversation with him. Now, I'm going to share this 4-step relational framework to open up a difficult conversation with him. I'm going to share how he responded at the end. And it was such a beautiful experience. And I'm just forever grateful for this framework. So I'd like you to hang on until the end because I believe you will find value in his response. But it wasn't always that way. I remember learning all of the ways to navigate assertive communication in my career. I came up through the 70s. Helen Reddy, I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. I went to countless assertive communication trainings, read books. And so I was a good communicator in the workplace. I was practiced and educated nearly 4 decades as a speech language pathologist. But the thing I learned is that when it came to my romantic partnership, those skills didn't work. It was the spring of 2018 when Jim and I had a conflict about a bird feeder. Now, a storm was approaching. We live in the Blue Ridge Mountains. We had gathered up all the furniture, secured it, but there was a bird feeder left in the yard. And Jim seemed nonchalant. And so I reminded him, Jim, we need to take that bird feeder down. And he just said no. And I was like, what? Why? We need to take the bird feeder down. It's going to blow away. It's going to hit the window and we're going to have glass everywhere. And he had this firm, unconquerable, quiet no. No. No expression, stoic as anything, no. And that rattled every emotion in me. How could he not see that that bird feeder would cause some damage? How could he not see and honor just a simple request? And how could he be so resistant? Well, it didn't end well. I exploded into my Waguespack attack. And yes, I have worked on that, and I own that German DNA. Have to do my work on it quite a bit. And what happened with him is he stonewalled me. He isolated himself into the bedroom, and it was right then and there. I knew I had to do something different. I had to figure this out. And I was seeing the fraying of my marriage. And I wasn't going to lose my marriage over a bird feeder. So what did I do? I retreated to my overstuffed chair and I ruminated in loneliness and resentment. I told myself all kinds of stories. He doesn't love me. He doesn't respect me. He's ignoring me. He's manipulating me. How could I ever have married a man like this? And then I looked out that window and I took a long square look at that bird feeder and decided one of us was going to win, and it wasn't going to be the bird feeder. Now, that moment is when I began to do my search and find other means of inner healing, other means of communicating, other ways of handling my anxiety, and owning the fact that all of my wonderful communication degrees and all of the thousands of hours of continuing ed in the field of communication, none of that could make me an effective communicator, or more importantly, an effective listener. It was simply going to take a transformation. It would take coaching. It would take classes. It would take reading books. It would take practicing, even practicing with a partner. If I wanted a nurturing connection with my man, then I had to take the challenge to do the work. Because it wasn't just about how do I get him to listen. It was more about how do I listen? How am I communicating inwardly with myself? That was as important as getting him to listen. So let's be real here. Do you ever feel like he just never listens to you? I mean, maybe he says, stop worrying, you overthink. Are you starting to wonder if your feelings even matter to him? He might say, oh, I know you told me that. I forgot. I'm sorry, I forgot, repetitively. And is it hard to have a real conversation without things getting confused? And do you often feel unappreciated and unheard, which makes you sad and lowers your confidence? and you start telling yourself he doesn't love you? And are you frustrated and feeling alone because he's not paying attention? Could it be that you've lost connection? Okay, these are, in a nutshell, the 4 steps. Step 1, I notice. Step 2, I feel. Step 3, the story. And step 4, the invitation. Now, this is an experiential exercise, and you're going to get a chance to share your experience at the end in the Q&A, but for right now, you can use the chat feature. So just remain on mute until the end. Okay, let me see a show of hands. Who's ready to dive in? Pop a yes in the chat if you are. Okay, the first step is I notice. Step 1, I notice that. Now, noticing is the seed bed of curiosity. This step is the underpinning of this communication framework. Noticing distances you from the issue at hand. Now, noticing also occurs on several different levels. And for tonight's purpose, we are only going to experience this noticing in our bodies. Just to give an example here. So let's practice with the microphones muted. I want you to listen to yourself saying, I notice that. And I've had people say, why do we have to say, I notice that? It's just too many words. Because it buffers your message. With Jim, it went something like this. I noticed that when you threw the butcher knife into the sink and you were aggressively chopping the carrots, step 2, I feel. Now, these are wonderfully confusing words. This is the most complex of the steps. And again, you're not alone. I'm here to support you in this. You will be offered a one-on-one session with me where we talk about your feelings, from your judgments, from your emotions, from your thoughts. We do a dive into that. So I want you to take a small snapshot of this skill. I want you to close your eyes and use a soft gaze. What do you feel in your physical body right now, in this moment? Changes in your breathing patterns? Sensations like saliva in the corner of your mouth? Maybe you're thirsty. Tension in your back or your hips? Temperature changes. Maybe your underarms are perspiring. Maybe your toes are cold. Okay, pop it in the chat. What did you experience? I always experience my toes, and I never think about my toes being cold until I do this exercise. When I get quiet enough to focus on my body will tell me what it's needing. Tony's feeling laughter. That must mean, Tony, you're feeling your face go into a smile. You might feel into your abdomen, like it's jiggling, the air going back and forth through your body. You might feel your head rolling back. Okay, so with Jim, it went something like this. I noticed that when you threw the butcher knife into the sink, I felt afraid and tense. My face was tense and my eyes were watching you like I was waiting for a fire to break out, and my whole body was hyper alert. Now, what I did here is I told him how I felt in my body. I used the word afraid. He can relate to that. I felt afraid and tense. And my eyes kept watching you like I was waiting for a fire to break out. When I use a little bit of a word picture in there, he can get more of an opportunity to have a felt sense of what I'm feeling. He can begin to relate, like, oh, wow, like waiting for a fire to break out. That's pretty much high on the scale of intensity for being afraid. Okay, let's go on to the next step. Step 3. The story. The story I'm telling myself. Now, this is the most challenging and soul-searching of the steps because it encompasses our narratives, our judgments, our blames, our assumptions, and even our joyous curiosities. This is where we do the biggest transformation, is when we separate what actually is a feeling from the story we're telling ourselves. And I help you with that because that is where the transformation begins to happen. Now, right now, I want you to take a moment and reflect on your own story as it relates to your difficult conversation. What story is spinning in your head? With Jim, it went something like this. I noticed that when you threw the butcher knife into the sink, I felt afraid and my face was tense and my eyes kept watching you like I was waiting for a fire to break out. The story I'm telling myself is you're angry at me, or maybe you're resentful about preparing to leave in 2 days, or maybe you're afraid you're going to die. Now, when I shared my story with him, I shared it on different levels. The story that I thought, oh, this is about me, he's mad at me. Or, oh, it's about him being mad about going to the hospital. Or maybe it's something a lot deeper. Is he afraid he's going to die? Step 4 is the invitation. Now, this step involves preparing context, and it's going to be explored during your free one-on-one connection call with me, because I didn't just take this framework and craft it while he was still dysregulated and throw him into a difficult conversation. I had to prepare context, and I teach you how to do that so that you get the best response from your partner to want to come into this difficult conversation with you. Now, Robin, if you can put this in the chat. These are 3 pro tips that I'm going to give you when you are inviting your partner into a conversation. Is that true? You can use that question. I would love your perspective of what happened. Would you be interested in helping me understand your perspective? Now, these 3 are great, and I use them frequently. Like if I had said, the story I'm telling myself is that you're really angry with me. Is that true? It gives your partner a chance to engage with you. I would love your perspective of what happened. Would people love to share their perspective? Would you be interested in helping me understand your perspective? Now, knock on wood, because I have never had anyone say no. I don't want you to understand my perspective. And because doing this work, I have encountered so many people and so many difficult conversations and so much listening, that I've come to have a belief that people want to be seen and heard. They want to feel understood. And it's that connection in being understood where the magic happens, where they feel nourished, their nervous system relaxes. Now, with Jim, it went something like this. I noticed when you threw the knife in the sink, I felt afraid, like my face was tense and I was waiting. It was like I was waiting for a fire to break out. The story I'm telling myself is that you're angry at me, or maybe you're resentful about preparing to leave in 2 days, or maybe you're afraid you're going to die. Is any of that true? Would you be open to sharing what's happening with you? Now, I'm going to tell you how Jim responded at the end. So hang on, because it blew my mind. Okay, these 4 steps, they're very simple, they're very powerful. I notice, I feel the story I'm telling myself, and the invitation. But I want to warn you on this. This is like a hand grenade. I've had 2 recent situations with clients who took these steps and tried to craft a message to open up a very difficult, contentious, both of these were very contentious conversations. Both of these people highly respect my work, and both of these people reached out to me and said, hey, Laurie, what do you think of this? One had already sent hers in a text to her husband. And I went, how did he respond? And he didn't respond well at all. It blew up in her face. And she said, Laurie, it doesn't work. And we had to do some relationship repair. I coached her again on how to set this up, how to do the work with the feelings and the story. Bingo, it worked. The other was a coaching client, a gentleman in a relationship with a beautiful woman. Laurie, what do you think of this? This is what I'm getting ready to send. And I was like, Mike, if you dare send that, you are going to torpedo your relationship. So would you be open to me coaching you on how you can craft that through these 4 steps? Well, he accepted that and he did it and, tweaked it to where it sounded like him. And it opened up the most beautiful conversation. I just heard from him today. He had another opportunity because this is an ongoing issue he and his partner are dealing with. And he got more into his story and became very vulnerable to the point of crying. And she has opened up like a flower. Like, wow, I had no idea. I don't like seeing you in that pain. So they are working on restoring their relationship. And he has praised me over and over for being supportive of him. He was worried about maybe he was too vulnerable, maybe he showed too much emotion, but it was so spot on that he dropped into relational communication. So what I'm saying, all of that to tell you, before you go out and use this, please take advantage of your one-on-one connection call with me because I can help you craft that. Now, what are your takeaways? Pop it in the chat. What your takeaways are on these steps. Which step spoke to you the most? Which step was something you think you need to work on? For me, the biggest impact was I noticed, and also the invitation. When I got those, the others I had been worked on them more powerfully. But the first and the last, because I realized sometimes my partner thought I was accusing him. When you did such and such, blah, 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 and never invited him to offer his opinion. But I started adding, I noticed that, and he became more responsive. Now, let me share about one of my clients, Jennifer. Jennifer was drifting apart in her relationship, 17-year marriage, drifting apart. She tried to interview people around her to find out what they thought. Should she leave him? She interviewed 8 family and friends. Then she came to me. Well, Laurie, here's the situation. She's taken data. Here's the situation. What do you think? And I said, no. And she looked at me like, what? What do you mean, no? And I said, Jennifer, you're not ready to leave your husband. She got very curious and wanted to know why I would say that. And I said, because you haven't done the work. Once you do the work to understand yourself and to do the transformative work and learn to listen to him, you can make that shift. And you won't have to be running around collecting data from other people. You will know within yourself if this is a relationship you continue to develop or you move on. Whoa. She decided to do the work. She got very serious about it. Her husband, just like Jim, never went to one class, never read a book, never participated in any of this inner growth. And she began to change her marriage relationship. And right now, they do enjoy, let's see, it's been a couple of years. They sustained a huge financial setback with him losing his job during COVID years. But they were able to get through that and stay together. And I applaud her. She was brave enough to take the challenge to do the work and shift her relationship. Now, when I hear these stories, you know, Mike and Rachel and Jennifer, when I hear those and I experience those stories, I know over and over and over that I need to be bringing this to my hurting sisterhood who are in romantic relationships. So, what are the benefits of this work? When you commit to doing the work, the possibilities are endless. You experience a deeper connection. You experience improved communication, improved listening, improved intimacy, and a stronger, more fulfilling relationship overall. And I help you achieve all of that. Now, what are the concerns? Did you know that unresolved communication issues erode the stability of relationships? Unresolved communication issues always erode the stability of a relationship. People who say we never fight, they've been sweeping those unresolved communication issues under the rug. And what happens next? They begin to lose connection. And that is what my program that I am birthing for closer connection helps you get that back. Because bids for connection are a statistical predictor of the stability of a relationship. So a bid for connection could be your husband tells you something and you roll your eyes. You've lost a bid for connection. A bid for connection is he goes out to the grocery and he looks at you and says, "Is there anything I can get for you?" That's a bid for connection. Maybe you've got a really introverted husband. You're sitting at a dinner table with friends and he's trying to lean into the conversation and you ignore him. You've lost a bid for connection. So what I teach you to do is both. Well, actually, three things. Communicate in a way that he will listen. I teach you how to listen. And I also teach you how to keep that connection thread all the way through. Because what do you get if you don't have that? If you don't have those three things, communicating, listening, and connecting, if you don't have that, you're left with two things: loneliness and resentment. And I challenge you, start counting how many bids of connection you give to your partner and make it a conscious effort. All kinds of ways, bids of for connection. And if you need some strengthening in that, you can use your free connection call and we can talk about that. Okay, so according to Bruce Music, an expert in the science of connection, our divorce rate is now 54%. And by the time people seek help, it's too late. The connection is so eroded. There's too much distance and it leads to apathy. So we love to say, oh, communication is so important. But what's more important is connection. If you're having trouble communicating, you're most likely having trouble connecting. So are you ready? Are you ready to make the investment in yourself? Because you can reverse the trend of eroding your relationship because of lack of communication, lack of listening, and lack of connection. These are all skill sets. And when you invest in yourself to develop a relational skill set, that nurtures your relationship. It's invaluable and it has lifelong benefits. I use my skills. I use them with my grandchildren. I use them with my daughters. I use them with strangers. I use them with close friends. It doesn't go away. You invest and these skills keep growing. Now, let me ask you a question. How many difficult conversations do you have in a month or a year or even a decade? And wouldn't this investment be worth it? I can think if I had this skill set decades ago, I may have been able to salvage some of those relationships. I don't know for sure, but I know I could have held space for myself with dignity and humility. Now, I'm offering you a free connection call because it hurts my heart to see women struggling, trying to increase closeness, but they're frustrated and they're trying to get their men to listen and to open up, and they're trying to get them to share their feelings, and they can trying to get them to get the hair out of the tub or put the milk carton back, or even, deeper things about sexual health or financial health. And I'm telling you, I've seen firsthand the effect of this framework on my own marriage. And that's why I am opening up a free connection call, a free time for any woman here who sees herself with these little niggling nuances of how can I get my man to listen? So ask yourself, are you ready to take the next step forward? The next step to a more connected and fulfilling relationship? Now, I don't know if those of you who are here tonight, I don't know what group you're in. Are you in the first group? Ready to say, yes, I'm ready, Laurie. I am in. I'm signing up for my free session. Or are you in the second group? No, I don't need this. My relationship's good. I'm going to tell you to sign up anyway, because if you are having a successful experience, I want to know about it. And then there's that third group. Are you part of the third group that's like, oh, I don't really know what this is about? That's usually the group I'm in. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm going to tell you, don't wait. Go ahead and sign up. These slots get taken. Okay, so I'm showing you the slide with my calendar. There's the schedule link at the bottom, or you can use the QR code, or you can email me if you're not sure how to access those, my calendar. Robin, you put the Facebook. Okay, Robin put the Facebook link in there. So if you click on that, you can join my Facebook. Okay, Robin, I can tell by the smile on your face, you're laughing. Like, oops. bit.ly/Laurie-calendar. If you click on that, it'll take you right to my calendar. You click on it, fill out the little form, and you're in. So I've opened up slots this week. Those slots will be taken away soon. But I'm opening some of those client slots up this week. And I'm also extending to you an hour. Originally, they were 30 minutes, but I'm giving away an hour this week. And if you're not sure how to do that, like you, Tony, I don't see you on here. Tony, it's time for you to be on my calendar.
I'm laughing.
Okay, so what do we do during a connection call? What we do is we look at your biggest relationship challenge and we lay out a personalized roadmap to address it. And if it feels like a good fit, we continue to work together because I'm committed in helping you create that deep connection, that emotional intimacy, and that fulfillment in your relationship. I'm committed to giving my time to you. And if you have a particular difficult conversation you brought, we work through that together. So you bring your issue to the call and we collaborate on it and see where you might need to improve it. So I'm going to say, I took this slide down. Oh, I should have left it up a little longer. But Robin put it in the chat, the links. Okay, now what I'm going to do is share Jim's response. I'm going to take a breath. Jim. I prepared context. I waited until he was regulated. He was very quiet that evening. And I opened up the conversation just like I went through the 4 steps. And I said, so the story I'm telling myself is maybe you're afraid you're going to die. Jim was a very stoic man. He did not show feelings. He had feelings, but he didn't show his feelings. The only time I ever saw him cry was over resolving his mother's passing. Now, when I said, "Are you afraid you're going to die?" Jim started crying. While he was crying, because of this work that I do and that I teach, I let him cry. I didn't rescue him. I didn't say, "Oh, it's okay, it's okay." I let my husband cry. And the whole time I had another story running in my head. Oh, he's afraid to die. He's afraid of the process. He's afraid, thinking that he was afraid of the transition of death. But that wasn't true. Jim was in a process of assessing the value of his life, and he was coming up short. He felt like he had not amassed enough wealth to leave to his son. He was feeling like maybe his chosen career and maybe his life didn't count for anything. And he began to share from such a vulnerable relational place. And I got to hold space and just listen. It was one of the most sacred moments in my marriage. Now, later, I reminded him that he did prepare his small estate to include his son, and if he died, that's what it was. I reminded him of what was already set up, and so that brought him some peace. Now, what's significant about this? Neither of us knew he would not be returning home. I don't know what the outcome would have been with him and me if I had resorted to my old ways. What are you doing? Throwing that knife in the sink like that? What's wrong with you? Well, if you're going to act like that, I'm not talking to you. Well, I'm getting on out of here. Having a temper tantrum? Man, what's wrong with you? If I had been in that space of shaming and blaming and making assumptions and accusing and judging, I would have missed the most sacred gift to watch my intimate partner open up in such a way to cry. I would have missed it. I would have missed the opportunity of let him struggle with what he was dealing with and knowing he wasn't alone. So, on that note, I would like you all to take a breath with me. I know that's heavy. Kind of shake it off, and we will transition into the Q&A. I'm going to stop the recording now.